Good morning. I'm guessing this is a recording now. We've had to start running things a little differently. Let me kind of center myself out here. This thing. Sad part is this screen captures backwards. This is so kind of looks weird when I'm trying to do stuff. But I just want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend to everybody out there. As I said earlier, we are switching things up a bit. Facebook is just getting harder and harder for some reason to put a live video off of a computer and stuff and to do the capture on my laptop and stuff. So I just don't want to have to use my phone and worry about it and holding it while I talk to you guys. So I have, and I was asked about doing a YouTube video before because some people don't, they have internet, but they don't want Facebook. So this way, um, just straight YouTube, and then I'll put links on Facebook so everybody can connect with me that way, and we can still be together. And it's just a better way to do it, I think. That way, everyone is involved, everyone is together, and with the YouTube, we can even start recording our services or stuff like that and put up for friends and families who want to be with us but are either visiting family, like in Florida, or we have friends and stuff out in Colorado and family. This is two off the top of my head. Washington, I think, maybe, remember right. But yeah, so that way everybody can watch it. And on those who received emails, the link to the YouTube channel will also be at the bottom of that. Of course, if you're watching this, you probably already clicked it, but either way. So this is the new way, and I did a couple tests earlier this week, and people let me know that the link was working, so this is good. This week, we do have a couple of unspoken prayers to keep in mind, so keep those in your prayers. But I also want to have a prayer, or have you guys pray for a very dear friend of mine whose father passed away the other day. And it's really hard because he spends winter in Panama. His father does. So when he was dying of cancer, he couldn't even come home to be with his family on his last days. And he still isn't home. We don't know exactly when that his girlfriend will be able to bring his ashes home with her so the family can have finalization. They can have, all the things they do when people pass away. So just keep him in your prayers. Now, for those who haven't heard yet and been living under a rock, because it's been everywhere, President Trump did send out a thing saying that, churches are to be put on the essential list and churches are to be opened. The thing with that is, God bless Trump, but we were never, in our little area, kept closed by Trump. We were closed by our own district for the safety of our elderly and high risk people. That being said, we're still looking at June 7th and putting actions in plan to do things. Now, that also being said, there were areas where pastors were, in trouble. They were raided by cops because they were having church. And I don't know the exact details. I don't need to know, but as long as the churches are following the social distancing, there's nothing the state level can do to stop the churches from opening. That is their own choices. But as for us, we are still looking at June 7th. We still, I had to put in a big order, make sure we had everything our little churches need to do this. Some of those things are kind of hard to get right now, but the Lord provides. And this week I actually received and now have everything on hand we need. Now we have to go into the churches, get together a time, and I can use volunteers. Just get a hold of me, reach out to me, let me know you would like it and what times work best for you so we can get together, go into the churches, sanitize them, clean them, get them ready. I will be sending out a guideline, I guess is the best way to put it, to say, hey, This is, rules we have to follow while we are attending church. Not everybody's going to like them. I'm not going to like them because it's going to be hard for me to talk with a mask on. But for the safety of others and the care of others, this is just what we have to do. These are sacrifices we're going to have to make. Speaking of which, Emily, good morning. And while I have you on the line and stuff, are you ready for June 7th? Because it is the first Sunday of the month, so it's your Sunday. So, but yeah, these new rules, these new, it's not going to be our old traditions, our old way of doing things. These are sacrifices that we are going to have to do if we want to open our building back up, because church never stopped. We've always had church. Me talking to you, us calling each other, caring about each other, praying for each other, stuff like that. We still have church. God is still working. But this way we can open our building up so those who are looking, so that we can be together. For people who can learn about Christ, can come into our building at certain times of the week and learn about Christ. And for that is why we make these sacrifices. That is why we do what we do. And this morning, that is kind of what I want to talk to you about. Sacrifices, the prices we pay. I mean, what is the cost of being a Christian? What has it cost you and or those around you? This started out as a whole different sermon, which will probably end up being next week to finish it up. I don't know. We'll see where the Lord leads me this week. But this started out something else, and this is what it's going to lead into. But what about sacrifices of those in other parts of the world? There are so many people who sacrifice so much to be a follower of Jesus. This past month or more, we have had to give up the practice of going to big fancy buildings. We've had to give up, seeing our family and friends. We've had to give up having lunch with each other after church for those at Denmark. And honestly, those at Boundary want to start joining us again too. But I don't know if you want to wait a couple hours before we get done and have lunch with us. But we always have lunch, a nice little lunch after church. We had to give that up. But when you think about it, in the grand scheme of everything, how much have we actually given up? How much more are we willing to sacrifice to get and give to God? And no, this is not a sermon about tithing and giving financially, so don't either put down the paper or, turn off the video. I'm going to transcribe this pretty close. This is a sermon of what we are willing to give up and sacrifice to be able to say that we are Christians. And will that sacrifice change accordingly to how hard it gets? When I was growing up, one of my favorite things was watching movies with my dad, because he watched these movies as a kid I cared nothing about. But I would sit there and watch them and, his reactions and just spending time with my father watching movies. It was great. And I don't remember all the movies, but I do remember this one movie with Burt Reynolds. He loved Burt Reynolds movies, in which Burt Reynolds played a character who, for some reason or another, did not want to live anymore. He wanted to die. He wanted to commit suicide. I don't remember anything else about this movie. I just remember some long, boring stuff about the movie. But I do remember the end, because at the end of the movie, Burt Reynolds is on a beach and he just starts swimming out to the middle of the ocean. And he swims. He figures he's going to swim until he cannot swim anymore. That way there's no second guessing. There's no turning back. He was going to commit suicide. And that was it. He was ready to die. For whatever reason, I don't remember. Unfortunately, at the end of that swim, where he was so tired and was getting ready to go under and stuff, he did change his mind. He decided he wanted to live more than anything else. He wanted to live. And so he started swimming back. And as he's swimming and stuff, he does what everybody does in that situation. He turns to God. God, if you will just help me live, I will follow the 10 commandments every day of my life. And he's swimming. And then he realizes, I don't know what the 10 commandments are. Lord, I will learn the 10 commandments and live by them every day of my life. And he's swimming. He's swimming. Remember, he gives promises. He's like, I will give 80% of everything I earn to you to do your work. And as he gets closer to the shore and he realizes, okay, I might make it. Okay, Lord, I'll give you 10%. 10%'s enough. That's what everybody's supposed to give. 10%. 10% of everything I earn. And he makes it to the shore. And he crawls up on the beach panting. And he sits there and he goes, Lord, you know what? I've got this. I'll take it from here. Thank you. And completely forgets everything he has just promised from the Lord to get where he is at. It's so easy for us to make what Mary Poppins called pie crust promises. Easily made, easily broken. And this can take form in one of two ways. We either call ourselves Christians when we're in church and around other Christians. But when people that are around us that it's not cool or it's not good to be Christians and stuff, we hide it. We follow their mentality and everything else and do unchristian-like things because we don't want to be made fun of or we don't want to be looked down upon because image is everything. Or we can dig ourselves into a deep, deep, dark hole like Burt Reynolds, and then we look for the light as God to pull us out. And then we make promises. Lord, if you get me out of this, I will never do this again. Lord, please help me get out of this hole. I don't know why I'm here, but if you would do anything to get my life back together and get it straightened out. But then we break those promises. Once things are going good, we forget the promises we made to God. And this is not coming from somebody who is, looking down my nose at you or everything. During my time in school, I was picked on a lot. And luckily for me, I had cousins who were some of the tougher kids in school. And they protected me so that others didn't go too far with the bullying against me. But that didn't stop me from making those pie crust promises. Anything else, I wanted to be the biggest, the strongest, to take care of myself. Of course, I wasn't willing to do anything like go to a gym and work out. I just wanted to sit back, do nothing, and get those muscles. I made it through high school, and I, went into the military. And during the military, I was called in for Operation Restore Hope in Africa, which was a humanitarian effort, but we were still shot at. And there was nights I was scared, and I made promises that I would do anything if God would just bring me home safely to my family. And of course, I'm sitting here. So, he did pull me out of that. And then after that, my life, I ruined it. Let's just be honest. I made a mess of things. I don't think anybody watching this video, well, I think there's people watching these that I'm not even sure who they are, and God bless you for joining us. But I made a real mess of my life, so I prayed to God. And one of the biggest prayers was for, help me find somebody who would help me through that. And he did, and we're still married after all these wonderful years. But even, during that time with, where I was finding myself, I found Jesus. I started going to church with her and stuff. But the old life just kept pulling me out, and I found it so hard to give up on what I was used to doing. But through sacrifices and some hard times, all that, we endured. And I'll be honest with you, Jesus carried me a lot of the time. I was kicking and screaming, probably, if you can imagine a kid being pulled through a storm wanting the candy. So, and the amazing part is with God, timing is everything. If things had happened in my life a different order, things would not be the way they are now. And just like this sermon, it went a different way and stuff. And when writing it, it didn't really dawn on me that this was Memorial Day weekend, where we honor and celebrate those who made the greatest sacrifices for us and for our country. They gave it all. July 4th might be the day of us celebrating the day we became a great nation. Veterans Day, or the day we celebrate those of us who served, stood up and said, yes, I will do my duty and protect this country. But Memorial Day, I'm not down, I consider Memorial Day for people who have, are missionaries who have died. our police officers who have died, our nurses and doctors who have gave it all, everybody who has done everything and gave the ultimate sacrifice for others. That is what I consider for this. But excuse me, but I bring back to our nations, because military in this nation is very dear to me, as you all know. And have you ever wondered, 56 people who signed that Declaration of Independence against Britain, have you ever wondered what happened to and the sacrifices that they made? Let me see here. 5 signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons in the Revolutionary Army. Another had 2 sons that was captured. 9 of them fought and died from the wounds or the hardships of the Revolutionary War. They signed and pledged their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor. What kind of men were these? 24 were lawyers and jurists. 11 were merchants. 9 were farmers and large plantation owners, men of means. They were well-educated people. Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ships swept from the seas by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags. Thomas McKean was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly. He served in the Congress without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and his poverty was his reward. Vandals or soldiers or both looted the properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. And at the Battle of Yorktown, or actually pretty close where I was stationed is the funny part, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over his Nelson home for his own headquarters. The owner quietly urged General George Washington to open fire, and the home was destroyed. And Nelson died bankrupt, gave up everything. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife, and she died within a few months. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying, and 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and his gristmill were laid waste. For more than a year he lived in forests and caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children vanished. A few weeks later, he died from exhaustion and a broken heart. Norris and Livingston suffered similar fates. Memorial Day means a lot to those of us who have lost people, who have given a sacrifice. As I said, Operation Restore Hope was a humanitarian effort. But I just realized I talk like a documentary during these cameras instead of like I preach. That's weird. Anyhow, rabbit trail. But those of us who have lost friends, like I was saying, Somalia was a humanitarian effort, and I lost friends. I really did. Cedric, every Memorial Day is in my prayers and thoughts. And if you ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, I keep wanting to say Operation Restore Hope. Seen the movie Black Hawk Down? That was Mogadishu. That was Operation Restore Hope in Somalia. And for those of us who have lost family and friends and loved ones in this country, this means so much for us. But we are in church, so let's see what the Bible says and tells us about what sacrifices we should be willing to give for our Lord. I want to read from Romans 12. But first, I want to remind you that in the first 11 chapters of Romans, Paul lays out this thing where it shows that what all God has done for us. He tells of this systematic, theology that this is what God did for you. And then in 12, he lays down what God asked for us to do. So I'm only going to read 3 verses out of Romans 12 this morning. This is from a New International Version. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourselves more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with faith that God has distributed to each of you. May God add blessing to the reading of his word. God wants us to transform our minds and present ourselves as a perfect sacrifice to the Lord, and not to give in to the ways of this world. There's an old saying, do not give your soul for the world. And that's kind of what this means. Don't give up your soul just so you can live in this world, because we do not belong of this world. We belong to God and his eternal glory. And this includes not only the times that we're the closest to the Lord, but those times that we feel that we are so far from him. But the great part of this is that God has already sacrificed so much for us. It's a two-way relationship, which, of course, is a healthy, loving relationship. When the relationship is one way, it won't work. If one person is giving up everything and the other one's just taking, it will not work. It is a two-way relationship. And the Bible tells us that we can have that kind of relationship with Jesus. When we read how moved he was by Mary and Martha and the death of his friend Lazarus. We also read in that particular book of the Bible about the power that Jesus wields when he raises Lazarus from the dead, and he casts out all of these demons. And this also proves that Jesus gives us life. Along with that, along with raising Lazarus, along with all the acts of healing that took place, there was even one act of healing where a woman just touched his robe to be healed. And of course, Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice by laying down his life for us while we were yet sinners. And according to John 15:13, there is no greater love than that. There is no greater love than to lay down your life for one of your friends. How much more of a sacrifice can we ask than to give up a very life? And how great would it be to be able to return that love for God? Now, I'm not saying that we should all go out and do something stupid and get ourselves killed just for the Lord. But there are things that we can do that will mean so much to the Lord and his work, and so much to people around you. I want to finish this sermon with a short story to make my point. During church one Sunday, there was a gentleman sitting in the back pew who was, not very well dressed. He came in what he had and stuff. And when the collection plates started coming around, he started to slink down into his chair because he was embarrassed. He had no money. And the plate, goes and just keeps working closer and closer to the back as it does. And as the plate came closer, he just kept slinking down more and more to the point where he just could not take it anymore. So he reaches into his pocket, takes out a piece of paper, and writes a note and finishes it just in time to put that note into the collection plate. Church continues on and stuff, and everybody leaves, shakes a few hands and stuff. And as the people in the back counting out the money and stuff, they find the note and realize it's actually a picture. It's a picture of the gentleman in his glory days. And on the back is written these simple words: I'm sorry, but I have no money to give. So I am putting this picture of me into the offering plate to say that I am giving myself to the Lord 100% spirit and physically, to do with as he sees fit. So I ask these questions again that I wanted to ask at the very beginning of the sermon. What is the cost of being a Christian? What has it cost you and those around you? What about those in other parts of the world? What does it cost them to be a Christian? Like I said, this past month we've had to give up going to a big fancy building with all of our friends and having nice lunch afterwards. But it's not actually that much to give up for the safety of others. How much are we actually giving up? How much are we willing to sacrifice and give to God? Are we willing to give up a few comforts and traditions so we can be able to worship in our buildings that we love so much? So we can have people with us? And so we can reach people who, like this gentleman, was looking for the Lord and had no place to go, nothing to give? May the Lord bless you and your families, and I hope you stay safe this holiday. And I hope to see you all real soon. May God bless you.